All right, welcome to That's on Board of Trade. We're doing earnings line for next week, which would be the 13th, December 13th, 2019. So just want to let you know where we get these earnings lines from. So every weekend, Maria Bartiromo has a show called Wall Street Week, I believe. And so at the very last 10 minutes of the show, she has an earnings calendar. And it says what stocks are having earnings that week or what financial events might happen. So what I do is I was a market maker for 20 years, and I take that information and I look for the 1 week straddle. That's gonna have the earnings baked into it. And then I make straddle markets so my students can play the game that I've created. Who are my students? My students are someone that's tried to learn derivatives trading, maybe on their own, and it's a big challenge, right? Or it could be a college kid who wants to be an entrepreneur, but he or she might not know what business they want to start. So I want to introduce them into the market making or introduce them into a type of trading or financial business. It could be a stay-at-home mom that follows the stock market, stay-at-home mom or dad that follows the stock market and wants to learn what these guys are doing on the trading floor because they're interested in it. So anyways, the way that you play this game, you watch the Maria Bartiromo's Wall Street Week. She'll have stocks as long as it has a weekly contract, which I go over in the class. As long as it has a weekly contract, I'll make you a market in it. And then for $10, you can buy 1,000 of my HBOT shares, and you can start playing the game. I've created a product that's smaller, it's simpler, and it's safer for beginners to use, like true retail customers. The contracts that exist are just too large, and the people on the street just don't understand it enough. So if you make the contract smaller and you start educating students, I believe that I can teach market making very quickly. Market making is a vocational skill. It's not something that's like you have to be brilliant, right? You just have to understand the language and you have to understand the games that people are playing, and then with practice, with repetition, that you can master it. So we're gonna go back to this here. On Monday, we have Toll Brothers. AMC means after market close. So I can be taking bets on Toll Brothers up until about maybe 2 o'clock Eastern time. It was trading $41 on Friday's close, and the straddle was $225. That's about 5%. 225 divided by 41 is about 5% of the stock's price. So the break even on this on the downside is $38.75, and on the upside, that's just 225 minus 41, and then 41 plus 225 is $43.25. So if you think Toll Brothers is going to be between $38.75 and $43.25, if you think it's going to be between those two prices, you could make money if you sold the straddle. If you thought Toll Brothers is going to go outside of this range, like if they're going to have really blowout numbers and they're going to go up to like $45, you would want to buy the straddle, and you can make money every penny over $43.25. You'll be making money per share. On Tuesday, we have 3 stocks. We have AutoZone, which is before market open, so I could be taking bets on that up until, let's say, like 6 a.m. Eastern time. It's trading 11.72 half, and it has a $60 straddle, which represents about 5% of the stock's price. 60 divided by 1,172 half, right? The break even, if I take $60 away from this number, I get $1,116.50, and of course, if I add 60 to this number, I get 1,232 half. So if you think AutoZone is going to stay inside this range, you'd want to sell the straddle. If you think it has either really horrible or really good numbers versus expectations, you could buy that and make money. GameStop is our next company. Play, ooh, did I have that right? No, Play is Dave & Buster's. So it's after market close also, so I could be taking bets on that till 2 o'clock on Tuesday. It's a $40 straddle. It's a $40 stock. It's got a $4.25 straddle, which is about 11% of the stock price. That's our highest. No, we got a 15. That's our second highest on the board this week. So the break-even is $35.75 on the downside or $44.25 on the upside. If you think it's going to stay in between 35 and 44, you'd want to sell the straddle. If you think it can move outside of this range because it does really poorly or it does really well, you would want to buy the straddle versus expectations. Then we have GameStop, GME. It is after market close, $6.50 stock, $1 straddle. That represents 15% of the stock price. So the downside is $5.50, $1 less 6.5 is $5.50, 6.5 plus $1 is $7.50. If you think GameStop's going to do really well and be a $10 stock by the end of the week, you'd want to buy that straddle. If you think GameStop is going to do horrible and it's going to be below $5.50 by the end of the week, you would want to buy that straddle. On Wednesday, we have two events, FOMC. So whenever we have a big FOMC event, I think of the 30-year bond. We could go to TLT, which is the ETF for the 30-year bond, closest thing. It's trading 138.5. And that straddle for next week is $2.25. So on the downside, it's $36.25. On the upside, it's $140.75. I might not include the 100, I apologize. So if you think there's going to be big news in this two-day meeting, you want to buy it. You'd want to buy the straddle. If you think nothing's ho-hum, nothing's going to happen, it's going to stay inside this range, you'd want to sell the straddle. Then we have AEO, American Eagle Outfitters, I believe. It's before market open. It's currently a $15 stock. It has a $1.25 straddle. That's about 8% of the stock's price, that straddle value. If you take $1.25 away from 15, you get $13.75. If you add $1.25 to 15, you end up at $16.25. If you think American Eagle Outfitters is going to be between $13.75 and $16.25, you'd want to sell the straddle. If you think it could have really bad numbers or really good numbers and be above $16.25 or below $13.75, you would want to buy the straddle. Then on Thursday, we also have three stocks. They're bigger ones. Costco, aftermarket close. $295 stock. The straddle is worth $10.50. That's 4% of the stock's price. The break even would be $284.50 on the downside and $305.50 on the upside. If you think Costco is going to stay inside that range, you could sell that straddle. If you think it's going to get really bad news compared to what's expected or do really well versus expectations, you would want to buy this $10.50 straddle. AVGO, I believe it's Broadcom, that's aftermarket close. It's a $315 stock and it's got a $16 straddle. So these are all about $300 stocks and their straddles are 10.5, 16, and 12, right? So the highest vol would be the Broadcom. $16 straddle for 1 week, which is about 5% of the stock's price. That means $299 on the downside and $331 on the upside. If you think Broadcom is going to stay in between these two numbers, you would want to sell the straddle. If you think it could move outside of these numbers, you would want to buy the straddle. Adobe, aftermarket close also, is a $305 stock, and it's got a $12 straddle, which represents about 4% of the stock's price for 1 week, right? So if I take 12 from 305, I get $293 on the downside. And if I add $12 to 305, I get $317 on the upside. So if you think Adobe is going to stay in between these two numbers, probably just deliver expectations, right? Then you would want to sell the straddle. If you think it's going to do really poorly, like miss expectations, or it's going to really crush expectations, then you would want to buy the $12 straddle and you can make money if it moves more than expected. So it's really important for market makers to understand the straddle market. When I would go to lunch, I know where the straddle was. When I come back from lunch, I would quote the straddle. That tells me what's happened to volatility while I was at lunch. So I think market making is vocational, and I think it's great for entrepreneurs. I think it's great for people that are interested in the stock market, interested in betting and gambling and fantasy sports, anything like that. I'm trying to make fantasy trading, you can think of it that way, just like how fantasy sports changed sports betting. I think these products are way too big for you guys out there, and I've created a product that's better for you. So please think of being a member of the Hudson Board of Trade, subscribe to my YouTube channel, thumbs up my videos. You're supposed to leave the bell on, that way you get updates. And for $10, you can get 1,000 HBOT shares, and you can start your journey of learning how to be a market maker, which the great thing about learning how to market make is you master trading eventually. Thank you.